Hey guys, this is Byron. Welcome to this week's 10-minute message designed to help you grow on the go. Today, we're going to be discussing why wisdom matters. If you have to ask the question, it's because you're going to need a little bit of more wisdom. Well, hey guys, Byron again, and I am going to continue our study through the book of Proverbs that we've been doing here at Redemption called Wisdom for Life, because the book of Proverbs is a book of wisdom, literally all about life. And the question that we're asking today is this: why is wisdom important? Why does wisdom matter? What difference is wisdom going to make in my life? I mean, that sounds like a really simple question, but the answer is quite profound. And so we're going to dive into the book of Proverbs, and we're going to look at 3 reasons why wisdom matters for your life. The first reason that it's important is because Solomon says wisdom will guard you. Here's what he says in Proverbs chapter 4. He says this. He says, "Do not forsake her," that's wisdom, "and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you." Essentially what he's saying is this, is that if you love wisdom, it's going to prevent you, it's going to protect you, and it's going to guard you from living a life of sin. Sin is a very big deal. Okay, sin is not just a mistake, sin is not just an accident, sin is not just a mess up, it's not an overreaction or a bad day. That's not what sin is. Sin is anything that separates you from God. Sin is missing the mark. Sin is falling short of the glory and standard that God has set for your life. And then Solomon adds this. He says that sin is forsaking wisdom. C.S. Lewis, I love his quote where he says that sin is not so much a hatred of God as much as it is a forgetfulness of him. That when we sin, we are forsaking wisdom instead of loving wisdom. And you know what? In our lives, there's a lot of things that we unnecessarily go through that could be easily avoided if we learn to love wisdom, let her watch over us, let her guard us, so that way we can live a life that is pleasing to the Lord. And I believe that the Christian life, it really is the best life. I believe that if we had just a little bit of wisdom and we lived according to the standards that God set for us in the Bible, that our lives would go a lot better. We would love wisdom and she would watch over us. Let me just give you a couple of examples for your practical life. Okay, first thing is this, about your marriage. So Proverbs 31 is all about the beauties of marriage between a valiant woman and an honorable man, loving and fearing the Lord together. So the biblical precedent in the book of Proverbs is that a man and a wife would go to church together, read their Bible together, pray for one another. That's what the Bible sets forth. And in America, the divorce rate is nearing 60%. But do you know what the divorce rate for those who are members of a local church is? 30. That if you were to live according to the wisdom of the Bible, wisdom would guard over your marriage. Another example is in the realm of finances. What I've discovered is that Christians who tithe tend to make better financial decisions. Right? The book of Proverbs, it says that we honor the Lord with the first fruits for produce, and then the Lord, he's going to give us a blessing. And that doesn't mean prosperity theology where you give God a 20 and he drops a Lamborghini in your lap. That's not what we're talking about. That's prosperity theology. That's not Proverbs theology. But what Proverbs theology would say is that when you view God as the owner and we're the stewards, it really changes the way you spend your money. Because you know that everything ultimately belongs to him, and he's just letting you borrow it for a little bit, then you're not going to have a lot of money left over to do dumb things, because people who tithe tend to make better financial decisions. Another example is for singles. For those of you who are dating, the book of Proverbs is perfect for you because it's written to singles. It's from a father writing to his son, primarily for young men learning how to become men. But the principles are for everyone, especially for singles. And all across Proverbs, there's a lot of warnings about promiscuity, sex outside of marriage, and the beauty of sex within marriage. So what Solomon wants you to know is, hey, keep your hands to yourself, be holy before marriage, and the Lord is going to bless you. And that is absolutely true. That there's a lot of heartache, a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of pain and confusion that could be easily avoided avoided if you lived in wisdom instead of living in a hookup, breakup, shack up culture. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. Another is this. Proverbs is just plain, he just says it. He says, people who get drunk are idiots. I mean, that's just the way he says it. And you know what? That's definitely true, right? Anybody ever done anything smart when drunk? No. Is drinking alcohol a sin? No. Is getting drunk a sin? Yes. You know why? Because you do dumb things. Do you remember college? No? Okay, my point exactly. There's a lot of wisdom comes from the book of the Bible. And if you would just love wisdom, here's what she's going to do. Wisdom will guard you. And so when you love wisdom, she's going to look after you. When you love wisdom, she's going to protect you. When you love wisdom, she's going to prevent you and she's going to guard you from living a life of sin. So the first thing is wisdom guards you. The second thing is this, that wisdom, it makes you happy. In Proverbs 3:13, he says, wisdom makes you happy. Happy is the man who finds wisdom and acquires understanding. Christians, guess what? You can be happy. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it is possible for Christians to be happy. And I know we love the Apostle Paul. And the Apostle Paul says suffering produces character and that he rejoices in the sufferings of Christ. James says that you consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you suffer trials of various kinds. We love reading the book of Acts where it's like they beat me and I was shipwrecked and I was beaten by a snake and I was left for dead. And I considered it all joy, okay? Yeah, I get it. Those things are very important. But the Bible also says is that you can be happy. Yes, there is one aspect of the life of a Christian that is suffering, and that does produce character, but it's also possible for us to be happy. See, Solomon in the book of Proverbs is just as much inspired of the Holy Spirit as Paul in Romans chapter 9. So Christians, I know we want to be holy. And you walk around and you say, we're not happy people, we're holy people. But can I tell you what I've discovered is that if you get wisdom, you get both. That you can be both holy and happy at the same time. Because the person who finds wisdom finds happiness. You can be happy. As I'm reading through the Gospels, do you know what I discovered? Jesus looks pretty happy. That the people he healed, they look pretty happy. The people he performs miracles for, they look pretty happy. Whenever he turns water into wine, do you think those people were happy? I bet they were really happy. It's possible for you to follow Jesus and to be holy and to be happy at the same time. And the trick is if you find wisdom. I've been a Christian for 13 years. And can I tell you this? I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. Before Jesus, I was a wreck, right? Jesus, he picked up the pieces. Is it hard? Yeah. Is it difficult? Yeah. Are there some days that are darker than normal? Yes. But you know what? I'm still happy. You can follow Jesus and you can be happy. The secret is for you to get wisdom. And then the last thing he says, why it's important, is that it also leads to life. In Proverbs 19:23, he says, the fear of the Lord, that's wisdom. It leads to life, and whoever has it rests satisfied. He will not be visited by harm. Now, does this mean that you're never going to have any trouble in your life? That's not what Solomon's saying. Some of you are immediately thinking to whenever Jesus says, in this life you will have trouble. And then Solomon says, the one who has wisdom will not experience trouble or harm. Well, who's right? The answer is they're both right. See, what Jesus is saying is a promise. What Proverbs teaches are probabilities. So this is a probability. And here's what Solomon's saying. After all of my life and all of the wisdom, here's what I've experienced. That people who follow wisdom tend to lead a better quality of life. Because they're not always making these big decisions and these dumb mistakes, and they're not forsaking wisdom. They're learning to love wisdom, and they're letting it guard them, protect them, make them happy, and it leads to a better quality of life. As a pastor, here's what I've discovered. 80% of the problems that we experience in our life, they're our own fault. 20% of the problems, we live in a broken and fallen world. That's the promise Jesus says. You're going to have trouble. 20% of the troubles we face are because we live in a broken and fallen world. The other 80%, that's on us. We say things we shouldn't say. We do things we shouldn't do. We overreact. We, get in fights with our spouse. We, take out our anger or frustration on our coworkers or our kids. That's our fault. We overslept for the chem final. We made a bad grade. That's on us. And we can't blame God for our problems. We need to stop looking at him and pointing the finger at him, and we start looking in the mirror, and we need to start pointing the finger back at us because we're the cause for the majority of the problems that we experience in our life. And so if you could get rid of 80% of the problems that you encounter, would you do it? I mean, just think about it. If you could just limit 80% of the heartache, the suffering, the pain that you experience in your life, would you do it? You're like, yes, absolutely. Nobody would be like, no, thank you. I like my problems. I made these problems all by myself. These are DIY problems. I made them myself. It's custom made by Byron. You wouldn't say that. No, you'd say, please help get rid of these problems. Well, if you want to do that, then you're going to need to get wisdom. And that's why wisdom is important. Thank you for checking it out for this week's 10-minute message to help you grow on the go. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're loving the book of Proverbs along with us. If you like this message, click subscribe, share with some friends, leave a comment, help us spread the word, and I'll catch you next time on the 10-minute message.